Welcome into another episode of Red Zone Talk. I am Owen Burke. He's Tim Hunt. I thought my mic cut out there for a second. I got nervous. Episode 24? Question mark?
Yeah, 24. 24
Exclamation
right.
point. That's episode 24, exclamation point. Let's do that instead.
Stamp it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, ready to preview the Super Bowl here, talk about some exciting football stuff here. If you're new to us, make sure you follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We're Red Zone Talk Pod on all of those. I think we're Red Zone Talk on Instagram, Red Zone Talk Pod on YouTube and TikTok. So make sure you check us out there. If you're watching on YouTube and something doesn't interest you, timestamps have been in the description to skip ahead to the sections that you find the most interesting. I don't know how to chapter it on YouTube. I just haven't watched a video. I think I'm missing something that I can't figure out. But yeah, it's in there, so you could skip ahead if you want. That way, you don't have to sit there and be bored with something you don't want to hear us talk about. But
Or play the scroll game where you're just sitting there trying to fucking
scroll
too far, back up, miss a
Dude,
pick.
you want to talk about something that's so frustrating?
Hmm.
So I listen to audiobooks on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I'm weird like that. I don't want to pay for the service. I was halfway through a book and the book the video got taken down because clearly these people don't own it, and it got taken down. And I spent 30 minutes last night trying to find where I was in this book.
Oh,
And it was maybe the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life.
that's heartbreaking.
And I don't know if this makes me weird too. I listen to it at 2x playback speed as well. So they talk super fast because I can read faster than they talk most of the time. So it's agitating to be like, God, why is this taking so long? I'm a paragraph ahead of them.
I feel that. I sometimes, and this may be even weirder, sometimes I'll put it on 1.5 or 2 times just because I'm like, I can speed this process along and still fully get what the hell I'm under. I can understand.
Yeah, what's happening.
Yeah. You get that. I know I've sent a couple, you get that minute voice message on Snapchat, and you're like, all right, speed this shit up a little bit.
I just ramble. I can't ever piece together thoughts, but
I'm the same way, dude. I'm Mr. 2.5 minutes over here for a voice message.
I read, what's it called? The Hunger Games. I read the Hunger Games series. I just finished it. I had no New Year's resolution to read a book series. I traditionally don't read fiction books very often. Not my cup of tea. Most of my books are nonfiction based books, and got into it. And I was like, damn, this is good. I never had seen the movies either. So we've been going back as I finish a book and watching the movies. So
what'd you enjoy more, the books or the movies?
I'm always spoiled because it's if you read a good book, you're like, man, there's so many details the movie just doesn't hit.
They don't hit at all.
You're just you're like, God, there's so many important details missing. And the other thing that's really hard about making a book into a movie, in my opinion, is when you're able to say what someone's thinking. It's so easy in a book to be like, oh, this is what this character's thinking in this moment. You know what I mean? Where in a movie, it's really hard to portray that sometimes without constantly having flashbacks or cutaways and
the narration in the background.
Yeah, it becomes shit really fast. So it's I don't think I've read all the Harry Potter books, watched all the movies. I don't think I've ever watched a movie and been like, oh yeah, the movie's better. Maybe The Great Gatsby or some shit like that. That's maybe the only time where I'm and I don't even think The Great Gatsby was that good of a book. You know what I mean? But it's it's that. That's sense. Probably the only time I've ever read a book, watched the movie, and been like, actually, that was better.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's what everyone says. I think that's a very consensus take from anyone who does both watch and read the same thing. That reading the book is always 10 times better.
Yeah, so. It's just they can get more detail, and it's holds your attention still. Where a movie, you can't make a movie 4 hours long. Nobody fucking watch that shit. So.
I mean, people would, but you definitely lose some people in the mix.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm so weird when it comes to movies. I don't watch a lot of I still haven't seen Oppenheimer. So
I haven't either. Can't blame me there.
Just not it's not something that I'm oh my God, I'm dying to find out.
Not a film buff, yeah.
I like movies, but it's at the same time, it's they drop the bomb. I know how that movie ends. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's that's fair.
Not to be a jerk, but it's at least tell me a story that I don't know the ending to. So, all right, let's jump into some trivia here.
Ooh,
I think a fun one for you. It's going to be slightly obvious. There's a lot of repeats, so the list is longer than it feels. I want you to name me I'm going to take the top 12, so 10 out of the 12 most passing yards in a single game in the Super Bowl.
Ooh, in the Super Bowl.
In the Super Bowl. So single game Super Bowl. I'm gonna open it up to the top 12 just because I think it's slightly more interesting.
Okay.
I guess I technically have to do it to the top 13. I didn't realize 12 and 13 were tied. So
Ties.
yeah, I'll take 10 out of the 13 names, but there's a couple repeats on here. A couple
It's like
repeats that surprised me, to be honest with you too.
which duplicates just counted? I just get 5 out of 10 with Tom Brady alone.
Yeah, that would be insane.
The real trivia is how many of these spots does Tom Brady take if you did just a flat top 10?
Okay.
My guess would be
hang on.
Okay.
Before you guess, I'll give you a bonus point if you nail it. So you're so if you want to lock in 4.
Yeah, my gut kind of originally said 5, but I want to go 4.
4 is correct. Yeah. So I'll just give you a right answer off the rip there. Tom Brady.
Let's go.
Tom Brady owns 1. He owns 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I guess it's actually only 3.
Damn, that's okay.
And then yeah, I guess the other one, like, because it's like weird. I'm doing like if you did a true top 10, he only has 3. But if you did the 13 we're working with, it is 4 inside of that. So pretty crazy, pretty insane that he's got that many on here.
100%.
Oh, excuse me.
All right, Thomas Edward Brady's here.
Yep.
Just trying to think of multiple guys or guys that would have made it multiple times.
And you want to think of guys who had big games. Not some of these guys are like repeat guys who are here a lot, but it's more about guys who had tremendous games.
Yeah, because it's single game performances.
Yeah, single game performances. You have
how many strikes am I going here?
Oh, sorry, I didn't say that. I'm gonna give you 2 hints, 3 strikes. So
okay, I can live with that. I'm gonna take an early hack, and it may be a first strike. I'm okay with it. Is Doug Williams? Did his 4 touchdown game crack?
Yeah, Doug Williams. That's honestly probably the hardest name on this list. So good for you. Doug Williams in 1988 threw for 340 yards. The benchmark to get here is 318 yards.
318. Okay, it's got to be a pretty dang good game. All right. Well, I'm playing with house money. I'm just slapping the Doug Williams in there. And the only reason I would have thought of that is because I asked you the touchdowns last week, and I knew that he had 4 touchdowns in his 1 Super Bowl he played in. I'm gonna take a stab with Montana and say that he had to have at least 1 crazy game in the 4.
Yeah, Joe Montana is here twice. He holds the true number 7 spot with 357 yards versus Cincinnati. And then he is also on here again against Miami. So he's here twice, but yes, he is also here. So that puts you at 4 right, no strikes.
Is Russell Wilson here? That's
going to be your first strike. Russell Wilson is not here.
I was just thinking they hung 43 in that one against Denver, and I'm like, maybe he's throwing it around.
He is not. He does not make this list. I don't know how many yards he threw for, but under 300 yards that game.
Okay. That was just a stab. Like I said, he put up 43. I was thinking maybe he would have got him up and down the field, but I do remember they had a couple defensive touchdowns in that game. I don't know if I'm going to use a hint here. I don't want to put myself at 2 strikes and then try to use hints then.
So this is a half good hit, half bad hint. Okay. It's still better than any hint you've ever given me.
It does not. That's a low bar to hit, my friend.
So you have 1, 2, 3. I think it's 4. Yeah, you have 4 Tom Brady opponents in Super Bowls. Some of them victors, some of them not victors, but you have 4 quarterbacks who played against Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
Okay. And then can I have any active guys? Would that count as a second hint?
I'll help. I'll be friendly. There are 0 active guys that make this list.
Really?
None. Yes, sir. Actually, that's not true.
There's 1?
one active guy, not an active starter, but an active guy. That should
Oh,
just give that guy away.
it should, but it didn't. I'm really glad that I asked that because I definitely was going to rip Mahomes after you said the Brady opponents. I'm shocked that he's not in that top 12.
Yeah.
That's actually nuts. I'm going to lose it if they don't stop blowing up the word group chat. My watch keeps buzzing. 4 Brady opponents. Kurt Warner.
Kurt Warner, yeah. So Kurt Warner, one of the more surprising guys here. Tom Brady owns the 1 and the 2 spot. Kurt Warner owns 3 and 4.
Yeah, I figured.
The 2000 Super Bowl versus Tennessee, and then the 2009 Super Bowl against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He threw for 414 yards and then 377 yards. So he's 3 and 4 here.
It's almost like he's part of the greatest offense, one of the greatest offenses ever.
Yeah.
Also, I saw a Nerd Sesh did, I think it was top 10 all-time receiving yards in the Super Bowl, and they were getting real grossed out just by a couple of the Patriots. I think Amendola made it his 10th.
So that's career yards in the Super Bowl is what they did. Yeah. And it was like Gronk, Julian, Danny Amendola, and Wes Walker was like 11, and then
they said Chris Hogan was top 20, and I was like, that's gross.
Chris Hogan is top 20.
I think was Deion Branch up there too.
Deion Branch was the other one. I was like, there's one more. Deion Branch at one point held the Super Bowl record for most receptions in a Super Bowl.
That's insane.
I can't remember who broke it, but it's been broken a couple times since. He's like 3rd now.
All right, so 3 Brady opponents left.
So that puts you at 5, right? 1 strike.
1, 2, 3, 4. I have myself at 4. I wrote down.
Did you write the bonus point down or no?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay, that's why.
So yeah, that's 5. I have Brady, Doug Williams, Joe Montana, and Kurt Warner so far is what I've written down. Is the guys I have. I'm gonna rip an Eli Manning here.
Eli Manning is not
here. Fuck, I knew that was gonna happen.
Strike 2. Yeah, I gave you a tough hint. You gotta. I don't know how good your Super Bowl memory is. You got to really think back to. I mean, you're missing the highest scoring Super Bowl of all time. Both quarterbacks are here. Brady was one of them. So you are missing that Super Bowl, which is a little bit of a shocker.
Is that the infamous 28-3? Because that's the one that comes to mind. I don't know if I just want to swing on Matt Ryan off that first guess and just die on it. My head definitely goes Matt Ryan there in that game. Because of what that was still what 30 was it 34-28 was the final score of that one?
Yes, yeah, because it went to overtime. That was the final score of that.
Was that James White game winner, or was that somebody else?
Yeah, James White ran that into. I think he ran it into. No, he ran it in to win it. I'm pretty sure.
I thought that's what I thought. I thought I saw that.
Brady is here for that game, but that is not the game I am referring to. Just to help.
Thank you for that. That is good enough for me. I could get my head off that.
Before you throw 3 strikes out on Matt Ryan, they ran the ball a ton that game.
Devonta Foreman legacy game. LeGarrette Blount legacy game. Man, I'm just missing what this high score.
Garrett Blount didn't play much in that game, actually. He fumbled early in the game, and then they sat him.
Bill was like,
"You're done.
Why don't you just go put your helmet back in your locker, buddy? You're not getting back in."
So you've guessed Russell Wilson, and we know it's not Matt Ryan. So that is, we know it's not Patrick Mahomes, right? So like, the list of QBs it can be going against.
So how many? Was he 7-3 in the Super Bowl? Is that right?
He lost twice. He lost to the Giants twice, and he has 7 rings. So he's 7.
Really, the only fucking.
Yeah.
Eli Manning really the only fucking guy ever.
Yeah, Eli Manning's I think the only guy to ever beat Tom Brady. Tom Brady has 7 rings. They went 9 times. Oh, is that right? Am I missing one in there?
I feel like you are, but I also don't.
Oh, no. So he is 7-3. You're right. Yes. Yeah, he is 7.
The undefeated season.
Yep.
Wait,
well, that was against
Manning.
The
Giants year.
The other game, the other Super Bowl I was forgetting was the one I was actually referencing earlier. The highest scoring Super Bowl ever was a Tom Brady loss, believe it or not.
Fucking 12-9. It's Rams. It was
Yeah.
Jared Goff. No,
You've got a very, yeah. So like you basically have the quarterback pool narrowed down to just the remaining quarterbacks he faced. Because you struck out on Eli Manning. You know it's not Russell Wilson. You know it's not Patrick Mahomes. You know it's not Matt Ryan.
The other Brady loss. Who else beat him in the Super Bowl?
You're gonna kick yourself when you hear it too.
Most likely.
Think easier now. Like I'd go slightly easier.
Because it was an NFC team.
Yeah.
They beat him when he was in.
He's only played NFC teams. Well, actually, that's not true. He's played one AFC team.
He's only lost to
He's only lost to NFC teams. So, but think wins. Think easier games that are going to come fresh to your mind, right?
I'm just whiffing
Okay.
left and right. Give me a second. I'm coming around there. Lost Super Bowl to.
Well, he thinks we're going to shout out some other people who are just off this list. Jalen Hurts is off the list. 304 yards that last Super Bowl. Didn't realize he had such a great game. Aaron Rodgers is also just off this list. And then Colin Kaepernick is the other guy just off this list.
That's insane. Man, who the hell would have hoisted the trophy against Brady? I don't know. Do I still have a hint left, right?
You do have a hint left, yeah.
Can I burn a hint and go away from those three guys? Because there's still a couple guys left that aren't Brady opponents.
Yeah, there are a couple guys left here. You're arguably forgetting you're forgetting probably three guys in the top 5 all-time quarterback argument here. So you've gotten Brady. There's probably you got Joe Montana. 2 of these guys are definitely top 5, I'd say, for sure, that you have not named here. And then, I mean, besides that, it's really the Brady guys, and then two guys that are all-timers, and then, or 3 guys that are, I mean, really the other 4 guys that aren't Brady opponents are top 10 all-time quarterbacks. Like,
makes me want to rip Aaron Rodgers, but I'm just so worried to go down to.
Remember, no active players. So to circle back to your hint,
no active starters. Thank you for that.
No active starters.
So I guess I technically do still have that guy.
Yeah.
The guy that's not an active starter.
And that guy is a Brady opponent, believe it or not. So
is that guy gonna be a free agent?
No,
it's not Russ. It's not Russ. So that's exactly where that hint was geared
towards. I don't know if that guy is a free agent or not. I'm assuming he would be.
But he's on a team this year, just not a starter.
Yes, he might have started. No, I don't think he started any games this year, actually. Let me look. I don't think he did. I don't even know if I could remember which team he was on this year. But like 90% sure he was on a.
I think AFC, NFC.
He was.
I'm the biggest fucking idiot in the world.
He didn't get signed.
Holy
he was a free agent.
Shit.
So.
I don't even want to say it. I'm fucking embarrassed. Jesus Christ. Big Dick Foles would be the quarterback that we've been waiting fucking 7 minutes for.
Yeah, he would be the highest scoring Super Bowl of all time. He's number 5 on this list. He is the 5th. He falls Tom Brady twice, Kurt Warner twice, and then it's Nick Foles, and then it's Kurt Warner again. There's your top 6. So
I literally
73 yards.
He came to my mind earlier, and I was like, don't forget that. That's a decent thought to come back to because he did have a big game. I did see that he was. I think he has one of the highest rated postseasons of all time by a quarterback, too. That run that he had with Philly. All right. Jesus Christ. Low-hanging fruits off the board, finally. Still have 2 Brady opponents.
Yep.
And our guy that... Oh, that was our active, non-active guy.
Correct. Yeah, he wasn't on an active roster. I was wrong. I thought he was still on the Colts, but he wasn't.
Okay.
But, yeah. So everyone else still got a bunch of Tom Brady opponents. And then you have
Two Brady opponents, right?
Left.
Yeah.
You have one Brady opponent.
Because I have Warner and
yeah,
Foles.
Yeah, you have two Brady opponents left. Yep. And then these guys are just all-timers. So the rest of the guys.
There's three names that come to my head as all-timers. I'm gonna go Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning is here. Yep, that is one of the guys. 333 yards against New Orleans, so he makes the list.
Thank God. I really don't remember who the hell else Brady beat in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. You still have another guy who's definitely a top 5 quarterback of all time.
Would that? No, wait, nope. Thank God I caught myself.
Definitely a top 5 guy. I think almost everyone would consider him top 5, if not definitely top 7. And then you have another guy who's probably a top 10 quarterback of all time as well.
It's the original. God, which of those guesses do I want to die on? If I do so,
hey, you probably actually have 2 guys that are top 10.
Drew Brees here.
Yeah, Drew Brees unfortunately is not here.
Is Brett Favre?
That is your Brett Favre is also not here.
Okay, cool. I was dying either way.
Yeah.
I'll live.
So guys that you have left were Donovan McNabb.
That's who I was gonna guess. I was like, man, I feel like Andy Reid lost the Super Bowl to Brady at one point.
He did. Yep. Donovan McNabb was the quarterback in that game. John Elway was left, right?
He was the last guy that came to my head, and I decided to go with the other two.
He was a guy in the top 10. Steve Young is up here. He was another guy that I put in that top 10 quarterback of all time.
Came to my head. Jake
Delhomme was the other guy that Brady beat in Carolina.
That was a Brady Super Bowl.
And then the other guy I said that was probably a top 5 guy, if not maybe a top 3. Dan Marino was here in his one Super Bowl loss. He made the list, and then Terry Bradshaw was our last guy available. So
surprised to see Bradshaw. I got 7.
Bradshaw was going to be one that was going to be tough for you to try to track down. So
I got 7. So
put you at 580 to my 540 here going into next week, which will probably be the last week of trivia for the season. We'll probably wrap it up next week. So I got to get at least 5 right next week. So
get ready for a stinker question. I was gonna say get ready for no hints, but you're getting that anyways.
That's just, we call that trivia with Owen. That's what we call
the norm at this point.
Yeah. Owen's just like, I can't give you any hints because it'd give it all away. It's like, well, then why even offer them, pal?
Like, this guy played with the Packers and the Jets. Yeah. Who is it? This quarterback.
Got to get creative on how you think of people, but
you do.
Yeah. I knew you were going to kick yourself with the Nick Foles one because that's.
I'm glad I came back around and at least got it, and didn't just completely whiff on that one. But geez, that took embarrassingly long for me to guess. One of the most memorable Super Bowls of all time.
I would say that's probably the second greatest Super Bowl ever, in my opinion. Is that Super Bowl?
It's the 28-3.
28-3 is one. I think that's the best Super Bowl of all time.
That's fair.
But I do think like that Super Bowl, because it was back and forth, and it's like Tom Brady versus a backup quarterback, and that guy is just completely balling out,
playing out of his fucking mind,
out of his mind. Like, that is just one of the more memorable like lines ever. You know what I mean? I found that one super interesting.
It's still, I think, the greatest championship weekend graphic of all time. And then there were 4.
Tom Brady,
Nick Foles,
Case Keenum,
and Blake Bortles.
Yeah, Blake Bortles. Yeah.
You're like, Brady and one of these 3 clowns is playing in the Super Bowl next week.
And well, I mean, the Patriots probably should have lost that game.
Yeah, to Jacksonville.
That was like a super, and like that was probably the closest game of the year. Like, it was.
We were this close to Blake Bortles and Nick Foles in the Super Bowl. You robbed us of that.
That would have been truly something else. That might have been the worst Super Bowl of all time.
Like you say that, but like with how good Jacksonville's defense was that year, I'm like, it would have been an interesting matchup. But when you have to compare it to what we actually saw, which was arguably the second best Super Bowl of all time, you're like, never mind.
The most
Okay.
interesting thing about that weekend, Case Keenum signed a big deal with who did he sign with? He after that season, he signed a big deal. Was it Washington that he signed that big deal with?
Um,
He went somewhere to be a starter.
Houston.
Maybe it was Houston. Yeah, he signed a big
I
deal.
don't know.
Nick Foles signs a big deal in Jacksonville.
Yep.
That worked out tremendously. And then Blake Bortles. Oh, I don't think Blake Bortles ever
He
really
never got
played
another
again.
spot.
Yeah, because Nick Foles stayed one more season in Philly. Blake Bortles I think already was on a big deal. But yeah, 3 of those quarterbacks ended up to not be very good, not even league starters. So, all right, we are gonna do a redraft of the 2023 draft here. Um, we're just gonna do the top 10 and then kind of give you our thoughts on who we think these teams should have gone with. We'll obviously start out with the easiest answer of the day. The Panthers. I think we're both going to have CJ Stroud here. I'm a,
I
a
think our
conservative.
top threes are or our top fours are the same,
Are the
actually.
same. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, yeah, CJ Stroud going 1. I mean, by far and away the best quarterback of the year.
Yep.
I'm going to argue he doesn't deserve to win Rookie of the Year. Um, but we can talk about that a little bit more. But the best quarterback in this class, but
That's what
probably
we
not the
should have
best
done
rookie.
today, buddy. Fucking. Oh
Yeah.
wait, did they already hand out awards? No,
No.
I haven't. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what we should have
when
done.
I
I
swear,
thought
didn't
that
they
was Pro
use?
Bowl weekend. Wait a second.
Yeah, they didn't announce an MVP though. Yeah, I thought they did that.
I'm gonna laugh. It's like tonight.
Yeah, with our luck, it would be February 8th tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks. By the time you
So
listen to it, it would have been old news. We would have been wrong on half of them, anyways.
yeah,
So
so yeah. I mean, CJ Stroud probably is going to win it, but in my opinion, doesn't deserve to win it. But by far and away the best quarterback in this class.
yep.
Now, do I think he's as good as he was if he goes to Carolina? Probably not, right? I
Hell
think
no.
the Houston situation helps him out tremendously.
Mhm.
And that's not to discredit Houston, right? Like that's just a quarterback disease. You know what I mean? That's just the
Discredits
curse.
Carolina more
Yeah.
than anything.
Yeah, exactly. That's more of what that comment's meant to do. And number 2, Texans taking Anthony Richardson.
Yep.
It's an upside pick, right? He only played what 4 or 5 games,
4
games this year. He looked good. Like he looked more developed than I think a lot of people thought he would. Like a
Yep.
lot of people saw him as like the raw guy coming out.
Mhm.
But he looked more put together than I think a lot of us thought. And even with how little of him we saw, the upside is so strong there. You have to take him at 2 if you're the Texans here.
And I think there's a possibility, like he plays 17 full games in Houston. He might have had a better year than CJ Stroud because you add the legs to it. There's more dynamic. There's more things you could do, more dangerous. Would he have had a better year throwing the football? No, probably not. But I do think he may have locked up Rookie of the Year had he played in Houston in that situation that he had and been healthy, obviously.
He's going to be one of the more interesting cases to watch in his second season because if he gets hurt, like the Colts have another bad season, they're going to have to take another quarterback.
What do you
Like,
mean another bad season? They were a week off the playoffs this
not,
year.
yeah, I shouldn't say a bad season, but
Just he gets hurt again. I mean, that's the bottom line.
more of the comment of like, see, or why can't I? Gardner Minshew's a free agent, right? So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you can't lose your starter and then constantly plan on like, oh, even though we lost our starter, we're still going to be very close to the playoffs. You know?
Yeah. You want to have a good backup to fill in for the 4 games to not sink your season when your starter goes down for 4 games. You don't want to be relying on that guy for 12 weeks of football.
And maybe they pay Gardner Minshew enough where he's like one of the higher paid backups and he stays. Like I don't think that's a crazy scenario for them.
No.
I don't see anyone signing Gardner Minshew as their starter.
There's probably only going to be one guy that is like a backup level guy that gets a starting job, and it could be him, but there's just too much talent available at the quarterback class for you to be like, oh, Gardner will get a shot and this guy will get a shot. You know,
like who else do you think it would be?
I would have to look at because I know that there's just a couple.
Like Kurt's a free agent, right? So if like Kurt leaves like Minnesota, I could see Minnesota bringing in Gardner Minshew to be like a bridge guy.
So you're like Sam Darnold, Tyrod Taylor, Jacoby
Yeah.
Brissett. Like one of those guys probably gets in a shot, right? Baker starting next year for sure. Kirk Cousins starting next year for sure.
Yeah, Baker, and then I'd say Gardner's probably got the best chance to start out of any of those guys. Like
Josh Dobbs is a
Josh
free
Dobbs,
agent.
it's over. Like
So
you
it's
know what
like
I mean?
one of those guys is going to get a shot, right? I think Baker and Kirk start for sure.
Yeah,
One other guy is going to get the shot. It could be Gardner, but like I don't think it's a terrible move for them to go get Josh Dobbs. I mean, he has around the same play style as Anthony Richardson. If I'm
yeah,
Indy, you're
it'd be
like
interesting.
that bodes well when you can bring a guy in that plays a lot like your starter does.
Um, and we left trades in, so any teams, obviously, with the Panthers picking one, like that should indicate every trade, even if it was a draft night trade, stays.
It's staying, yeah.
Um, at 3, Will Anderson. We have the Texans taking Will Anderson. Um, I don't think like Jalen Carter was good, Devon Weatherspoon was good, Christian Gonzalez was good, but I still think this was the right decision.
I agree, yeah.
It was the right fit for the right team at the right time, and I don't know if I would mess with that. Like Jalen Carter has maybe looks like a better upside, but he's still an interior D line. And I think part of Jalen Carter's success this year is there's so much talent in Philly that there's more opportunity, right? Whereas if he
Yeah.
comes to Houston, I don't know if that opportunity's there necessarily.
If you ask me to pick which guy had a better 8 week stretch, I'd pick Jalen Carter in a heartbeat. Like his first 8 weeks of the year, unstoppable. And I do believe that being in Philly has parts so to do with that. But Will Anderson's probably walking out with Defensive Rookie of the Year tomorrow night. He's going to be the same pick 3 that they made in real life.
Yeah, is he get is he he's probably is he's the favorite to win
I
defensive rookie of
believe
the
he's
year?
the favorite
Yeah, okay.
from what I remember.
All right. Number 4, I think this is where are we the same here or do we
We are
start
the
today?
same. This is the
We're the
last pick
same.
where we're not
Same.
the last, but the last
Yeah,
consecutive that we're the same.
same. Colts takes Bryce Young here.
Mhm.
I know it was a disappointing year, but I think the talent is still there. The upside is still there, right? Like you can't completely just like that Carolina was a disaster, right? There's
Yeah,
just no way around that. And the Colts need a quarterback so bad that they have to go in and get a QB.
yeah.
And the argument between him and Will Levis is there, right? It exists. I still would probably like again, if I'm the Colts GM and we're doing this magical redraft, I'm taking Bryce Young over Will Levis. I really do. I think that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this guy was the number 1 overall pick for a reason, right? Like, let's not just act like Carolina landed him because they're a bunch of fucking idiots. They are, but it's unrelated to that situation, right? That pick happened um, because he's that talented coming out, right? And we should have known that it wasn't going to go well, considering the fact that Baker Mayfield was not only a starter this year, but he was a starter for a team that made the divisional rounds of the playoffs this year. And
Yeah.
he was playing practice squad defensive end for that team last year, right? I don't know what our expectations for Carolina was. Like, obviously, there were none. We knew this was going to go south. Bryce Young still has the talent. And I think landing in Indianapolis, solid run game, offensive line, weapons. I think it's a pretty damn good. And also, given Indy's situation going into this draft, there was a 0% chance, an Ice Cube's chance in hell, they walked out of the top 4 without a quarterback.
And the other interesting thing to me too is we talked about matching backup quarterbacks. Bryce Young and Gardner Minshew are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Smaller guys, like I mean, they're about the same level of athleticism too. I don't think that's a crazy leap from one to the other there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and neither one of them are necessarily like big QBs either. So that might be the perfect mentorship happening there. I think that would be kind of more super interesting to kind of see how that blossoms out. Um,
Yeah.
who do you have Seattle taking? I think we vary now.
We do vary. I'm sticking with Devon Weatherspoon here. I think the need at corner was there. He was a Pro Bowler this year. He was locked down across from Tariq Woolen. I think they were trying to get back to their roots, right, with Pete Carroll, and now obviously still bringing in Mike McDonald. Depending on whichever way you go, they're probably going to lean defense here.
Yeah.
And I think they want to try to build that defense from the back end in like they did back in their Super Bowl years. I think they keep the same pick. They drafted a Pro Bowler. I don't think they change it. They still go Devon Weatherspoon.
Yeah. I have him going Jalen Carter.
It's a good pick.
Like, again, he was streaky, but I still think like Seattle is equally as stable at the time as Philadelphia is.
Mhm.
Um, so it's a place he could come in, get swooped up in the culture. You know, they brought Bobby Wagner back. There's veterans in that locker room. They probably have a bigger need for corner, but I just think the upside of Jalen Carter is too much to try to pass there.
It's possible that you could I think you can make the argument that the defensive line was a bigger need. Now, obviously, they did trade for Leonard Williams eventually, so it did kind of fill
Yeah.
that hole. But before adding Leonard Williams, I think honestly that's probably is a bigger need, and it's something that they've never really had. Of all the great Seattle defenses in Seattle football in general, there's never been the
Yeah.
guy in the middle. That's always been the thing that they've been missing. Is like the big guy in the middle of their defense.
Who's there?
So
Who would you argue is the best, like Pete Carroll, Seattle Seahawk, like pass rusher? There's only one name that comes to my mind, and he's not even that good.
pass rusher.
Yeah.
Oh, Cliff Averill is honestly the
Mm,
first guy that comes to my head.
interesting.
Number
Michael
56.
Bennett is what came to my
Yeah,
mind.
that's a good pick. I mean, they played across from each other to those two guys. But other than that, not a
Yeah,
lot of
no,
guys getting after the QB.
right? Which is crazy to say for how
Davion Clowney
dominant.
had a 1 year stretch there.
Yeah, like how good that defense. Well, he's just Mister like talent has just rolled that guy. He's gonna get you 6.5 sacks no matter what.
He was top 10 this year, I think.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. And don't be surprised if he lands in Seattle with Mike McDonald again. I honestly think Mike McDonald's going to bring 3, if not 4 guys from Baltimore's defense with him
With him.
and probably get another career year out of him next year. It's going to piss me off.
Not Clowney. I don't know, maybe, but I hate Clowney. I think he's just
I want him back in Baltimore. So, I mean, it tells you he played well enough for us this year. Is he a bust? Yes. But at this stage of his career, like, I mean, that's what made Baltimore's defense so great this year. You have all these young guys and everything. They're like, Cal Van Noy, Jadeveon Clowney. How about you guys fucking come on in here? Like,
whenever we watch like the games and I'm like, with my wife who maybe doesn't, watch or know as much about football, I always like to tell like the interesting stories because you're like, oh, that's, interesting. And we were watching the Texans in the divisional round. I was like, oh yeah, we were talking about because they were playing. I don't remember who they were playing.
the divisional was us.
Oh yeah, it was Baltimore. And who's their tackle? I can't remember his name now. I can see his face.
Laramie Tunsil.
And I was telling her the story about the gas mask and about how it
yeah.
tanked his draft stock. Like that is single-handedly the most like one clip destroying someone. Jadeveon Clowney is the opposite. He had that one hit against Michigan and it just skyrocketed. Like,
took him from like probably a top 5 edge rusher in the class to like this guy's the number 1 overall pick. You're an idiot if you don't take him.
If you don't take him, it's like he's the exact opposite of that. Where it's like Laramie Tunsil was actually a good player, and one clip hurt him, and then it's like Clowney was he was still a good player, but it just elevated him to a level he didn't deserve to be at.
I mean, when you think about it, like take that play away, right, and you bring him back down. Say he gets drafted, picks 20 to 32 in the first round, maybe early second. That's a damn good pick. You're like, I feel like I've got a pretty good career out of this guy.
Even if he goes top 10, it's like if he's 7, we don't even talk about it. It's just like you're like, he's pretty solid. For the 7th overall pick, he's bounced around. Found a career, found a spot here, found a spot there.
Yeah,
but, it's more of a
number 1.
No, number 1. It just looks bad.
Another failed Houston number 1 overall pick.
It's always interesting. Edge rushers like. To be a success at number 1 overall, it's very difficult. And there's like in modern history, there's only like Myles Garrett, I would say, is a success, right?
Yeah. Number 1?
Yeah.
I'm curious now. The other guy that comes to mind is like Mario Williams, which like he had a
long time ago. Yeah.
He was solid, but like
I'd say that wasn't a bust,
It wasn't a bust, no. But
was Joey Bosa the one?
I don't believe so. Trayvon Walker hasn't been good bust. So far. Before Myles Garrett, it was Jadeveon. Not great.
Yeah.
And then before that was Mario Williams in 06. Like edge rushers, as much as we talk about them, they don't go number 1 overall a ton.
Yeah. It isn't. Well, especially now in quarterback era, it's probably all quarterbacks.
1, 2, 3. The last time that a quarterback wasn't taken was Miles and Jadeveon, and before that it was 2013 with Eric Fisher. You have Eric Fisher, Jake Long.
Yeah.
Other than that, every pick since 2000 was QBs and edge rushers at one.
Eric Fisher was mediocre. Jake Long was just injuries killed his career.
Yeah, he was solid, but hurt.
Yeah. Eric Fisher was just I think he had a lot of injuries too, I think.
Eric Fisher was good at the end of his career as a player. Not good for a number one overall pick, but you're like the last 2 or 3 years in Kansas City, you're like, this guy's actually a somewhat serviceable.
I thought
tackle.
didn't he finish his career in Indianapolis? I'm pretty sure he
Mhm.
did.
He
And
did,
he was
yeah.
okay there.
What
And I think he got hurt. I think he got hurt his last year in Indy, and that's why he
Yeah.
didn't come back. He just retired. He's like, yeah, I'm done.
Do you remember the second tackle that came off the board that year that they were debating who should have went one?
No.
One of my favorite, just I don't know why, just random. Luke Jokel out of Texas A&M. You remember that guy?
Yeah, I do remember
It's
Luke
just
Jokel.
a name that just sticks in my head for no goddamn reason. But
He didn't become very good either.
no, they were both horrible. 2013 was an awful draft year because you remember Eric Fisher and Luke Jokel was like the debate of ass in the NFL, and then guess who the number one overall pick in the NBA was?
Who?
Anthony Bennett. Horrible year for drafting.
Dang, that's crazy.
Just bad draft year. Unlucky number 2013 right there.
Let's jump into. Oh, that reminds me. I got to talk to you a Knicks related thing after the show. Remind me that.
All right. I'm gonna write it down so I don't forget.
Found that super fun. Number 6, I have the Cardinals taking Puka Nacua. And this is who I would argue should he 100% should win Rookie of the Year.
I would agree with you.
He broke every rookie receiving record like that was out there, and deserves it, right? Like he has looked for as like he gets the amount of hype he got is disproportionate compared to the Jalen Waddles, the Garrett Wilsons, the Devontae Smith, these other young wide receivers that were out there. Like I feel like he just isn't as hyped, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's because he's in LA and we're like tired of slot receivers in LA, but I think Puka Nacua is offensive rookie of the year. And in the Cardinals situation, I think it becomes really interesting, right? Like you have Kyler Murray, you have James Conner, who is 1,000-yard rusher pretty much every season. Hollywood is your deep speedster. You have Puka Nacua, who becomes your volume receiver, right? Puka Nacua is what everyone thought. Oh man, I'm gonna blank on the guy's name. He was the PFF guy that they took. His last name starts with an I. I gotta look up now, but he fills that Andy Isabella. Yeah, Andy Isabella. He fills that role that everyone hyped him up to be. Puka just becomes that guy.
Yeah, and I think Puka doesn't get a ton of credit, and I could see it somewhat because he does play in LA. And I think he gets more hype if Cooper Kupp doesn't win the Triple Crown 2 years ago. I think a lot of people look at it as like Cooper Kupp wins the Triple Crown, he goes down, and they drafted a very talented rookie, right? I mean, obviously you have to be good to do what he did this year, but the pure volume comes from what that offense is, which I can see to a certain degree. I do agree he should be rookie of the year. It's actually exactly who I have Arizona taking here.
Oh, okay.
It's not the biggest need in the world, right? Like I thought about maybe them going Bijan, maybe they go running back. Jalen Carter would still be available on my board, a big defensive player for them. But honestly, I get here to pick 6, and I'm like, Puka Nacua is too good to fall. And it's not that I almost had him going at 5 to Seattle because I'm like, he's that good. But like we thought 20, them taking Jackson Smith and Jigba was a little overboard, having Lockett and DK. Puka at 5 is just overkill of the century for them.
And honestly, with the way like these mock drafts work, like the redrafts work, like they might be able to get a Jordan Addison at 20.
Yeah.
Like, there might be a bad, like still a decent wide receiver.
I'd take Tank Dell at 20.
You take who? Yeah, Tank Dell. Yeah,
Tank Dell's available 20.
Was Nico a rookie too?
I don't believe so.
No. He's
Marvin Mims in Denver.
Marvin Mims is up there. Yeah,
there's a couple guys in this class you could have gotten later on.
Yeah,
hell, Jackson Smith and Jigba would have been there at 20 if you want to take him again.
He was. I think it was more of a volume issue for him.
He got hurt. He was hurt a little bit of the year too.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of opportunity, and they don't. I mean, Geno Smith wasn't very good this year. Who saw?
I don't know why they don't move off of one of those guys, but
yeah, I think they will eventually. I mean, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Like,
let's wait for the value to just completely deteriorate before we move one of them out.
Well, I mean, Tyler Lockett's not worth much, but could you still get a first for DK? Maybe. I don't know.
In the right spot, I think so. Yeah.
You definitely could get a second for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Second and a fourth,
fourth or
second and a
something.
third,
Yeah,
and you give them a fourth with DK, something like that.
something like that. Yeah, I mean, if I'm New England, I'd give a second for DK. Like,
If you had a first that wasn't pick 3, like if you had
mhm.
27, would you give it
Yeah,
for DK?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's why I think it'll be really interesting to, like, if one of those guys becomes like available, like would the Chiefs do that? Just be like, here you go. Here's pick 30,
Why not?
31, 32. We'll take DK. Like that's they need to go out and get somebody who's consistent.
We
Is
should have
really
drafted him over McCole Hardman in the first place. Please take my first round pick for him.
he was also such a wild one. People thought he was going to go 8 to like Buffalo in that draft, and that guy fell all the way to the second round. Like
I
that's
think he was a third
insanity.
rounder,
Was he a
actually.
third rounder?
I think so, if I remember. I could be wrong. I'll look.
I remember his BMI was like the talk of the draft because he was like
Yeah, and they ran a.
4%.
He was the last pick, the last true pick of the second round, pick 64.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, and then remember, like they're like, his BMI, this guy's a freaking nature, the
Yeah.
strength and everything. Can he run? And they're 4.45, 4.5 40.
Yeah.
I remember exactly where I was with DK Metcalf at the 40, actually. So we're doing RA training at Butler, and I'm with Bryce. Bryce is also doing some RA training at the time. And so we're sitting there, us, we're both football guys. We're paying attention to the combines happening. And I remember getting the notification. I literally went to Snapchat and like typed it up and like blew it up on my phone and just held
Mhm.
it up. It was like DK ran a 4.5. And we both were just sitting there like, oh my fucking, this guy's a freak of nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that he fell that far is insane.
It's pretty
Not
nuts.
not top 10 pick, cool. Not top 50, insane to
And
me.
he definitely probably should have been a first rounder.
Yeah,
Well,
I would agree.
obviously, right. Now looking back at it, it's easy to say. Um, all right, who do you got the Raiders taking?
I have the Raiders. This is where I have Jalen Carter going.
Okay. That makes sense.
Like now looking back on everything that we knew then, right? There was, and I don't know how much truth there ever was to it, but right, it was a conversation to character concerns. I don't think there really ever was any. If anything, it just bolsters the Vegas's case to take him here. Truthfully, like why they took Tyree Wilson, I'll never fucking know. It's never made sense when they did it. It didn't make sense now. Like there are, I mean, tons of better guys than Tyree Wilson.
Yeah, it just didn't feel. It felt like a Raiders pick
It
where you're
felt like
like,
a Raiders
what are
pick,
you
which is a
doing?
bad thing. If someone sits there like, man, that feels like a Raiders pick, that's an insult.
I want to say, if I remember correctly, like a lot of people had Tyrese Wilson like in the 20s. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't crazy they took him in the first round. It was nuts they took him in the top 10. Like
in the top
nobody
10. Yeah.
nobody really saw that coming. It just wasn't a good fit. I've got him taking Will Levis. I just look at the quarterback play that they had this year and I go, what's their biggest need? And it's got to be quarterback, right? Like Will Levis would have been better than Jimmy Garoppolo for sure this year. Um, I'm curious if it would have been better than uh, Aiden O'Connell. But at the end of the day, I think it's something you have to take a shot on. It probably might save Josh McDaniel's job, right? I think Josh McDaniel lost his job because of Jimmy Garoppolo and just the quarterback play. I think Will Levis might have kept him his job there, which would be a mistake ultimately. But I think Will Levis is the pick here. Do I think he's deserving of a top 10 pick after what we've seen? No. But do I think the Raiders are desperate? Looking back at it, they're desperate enough to take a QB for sure.
Yeah. I don't blame you there. I mean, he's shown the flashes, enough flashes to make you do it.
Falcons, who do you do? Are we the same here?
Bijan Robinson, my friend.
Yeah, both of us have Bijan here. Bijan's I almost debated not taking Bijan here, but ultimately I'm going to blame the lack of production from Bijan on the coaching and less on Bijan himself. Um, do I think they necessarily needed to take a running back? No. They might have been fine taking a corner here. But he is a once in a lifetime generational type running back if he can live up to that potential. I'm hopeful with a new OC and a new offensive style in there that some of that can get fixed, but he'll be another one that I think is really interesting to watch what his sophomore season looks like.
I agree. Arthur Smith was such a paradox this year because he deserved to be fired because they spent 3 top 10 picks on guys he refused to use, but also deserved to keep his job because he was creative enough to put on a passable offense without using his three best weapons. You know, like
Yeah.
it was such a weird thing. You're like, you're good enough that, you know, like Jonnu Smith and McCole Pruitt as our two most used tight ends is a passable offense where we can win 8 games, but you're going to be fired because I didn't spend pick 4 on Kyle Pitts to watch him sit on the fucking sideline, you know, or block for those two on a trick play.
I would pay money for Pittsburgh to draft Brock Bowers. I really would. Like, I would just love for them to take Brock Bowers and then just never use Brock Bowers.
Actually, yeah, bring it, do it. I'm perfectly okay with that. I forgot he got hired there. The depressed look on my face there. I was looking at Raiders first round pick history.
It's bad. Been bad.
Pretty fucking awful, yeah. So Josh Jacobs, 2019, he was a Pro Bowler, right? They took him with pick 24. The last time they took a guy in the first round with their first rounder, I guess.
So excluding Josh Jacobs, then.
Yeah, the last time they drafted a Pro Bowler would have been Amari Cooper in 2015 in the first round.
Yeah,
they have
because
not.
They took Josh Jacobs, but he was their second first round.
Yeah, because they remember who they took at 4 that year.
Was that the Clemson guy? Was that God? What was his name? Will
Not
something,
Will.
right?
You got the last name right.
What?
Farrell.
Was it Farrell? Okay.
Yeah, Quinlan Farrell.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was doing. Okay.
Yeah,
I was like, I swear it was Farrell or something like that.
Yeah, I was like, not Will Farrell, but yeah.
Okay.
Jesus. They had pretty solid 2014, Khalil Mack, 2015, Amari Cooper, pretty solid years, but after that,
yeah,
gone.
Because we argued for Mayock to keep his job because Gruden was taking the first rounders and just whiffing on everybody, and then like Mayock was just finding all these gems in the rough, and we were like, man, let Mayock pick the first rounders and see what he can do. Maybe he'll actually hit on one.
I would love for Mike Mayock to get a GM job again without an egotistical head coach. Like,
it unfortunately won't. It just won't happen.
Oh no, it won't happen. I was shocked when it happened the first time, but like
he got it because it was someone John could control. Like John would have final say.
Truthfully, like if I'm a team looking at a GM and like I need a reset, the guy that drafted Max Crosby in the 4th round is pretty good standing for me to be like, oh, maybe this guy's fucking onto something here.
Okay, he could be. All right. Number 9. Who do you have the Eagles taking?
The Eagles. I think this is I was surprised to see you had the exact. I have them taking Christian Gonzalez. You know, obviously their corner play fell off a cliff. James Bradbury went from like one of the most underrated and best corners in the league in New York to one of the most targeted and worst corners I've ever seen in my life, especially down the stretch. I mean, anytime you have a team that, whether you're on an island or not, right, or maybe, you know, your one's on an island and you're just having to kind of bounce away from wherever he's at, anytime a team's game plan is just to throw at you, regardless of who you're lined up against, just
not a good feel. Yeah,
not a good feel at all, right? Christian Gonzalez, obviously rookie year, cut short by some injuries. He was a dog to start the year. Silent assassin, a fucking animal in New England. They definitely drafted another good one there. I'm surprised to see you still have him here with who you had at 10, but
yeah, I would take. Okay, so I mean, at 10, I have Witherspoon. Gonzalez, from like judging in the time frame in which we saw both of them, Gonzalez was better. And in my opinion, I would rather have a better man-to-man corner in Gonzalez than I would rather have a Witherspoon.
Fair.
Witherspoon is going to be better. He's going to be more diverse in who he can cover. He's so physical that you can put him on like a DK Metcalf, where I don't know if I'd necessarily feel great about putting Christian Gonzalez on there. But for the 6-7 weeks, whatever it was that we saw it, was it 4? Man, it was not very long. Maybe, I don't know.
I think it was 4 or 5, 6 at most, maybe.
Yeah, 6 at most. For that time frame, I would take Christian Gonzalez for sure. Yeah. Who do you have them taking?
At 10, I have Chicago taking Jahmyr Gibbs.
I don't think that's crazy.
You know, like I'm just looking here, and right, you could go receiver. There's a ton of talented receivers here. You have a couple tight ends that are really good. Honestly, like a Kobe Turner, I don't think it's terrible to pop in here. The Rams' 3rd round edge rusher had a really, really solid year. But when I look at this, Khalil Herbert's solid. I like Khalil Herbert. The backup running backs don't do a ton for me, right? You really, really need a two-headed monster. And this is me leaning into Justin Fields' running ability. All right, like I want to get the most out of this. And if I could put a two-headed monster in my backfield, but also a read option between and RPOs between Jahmyr Gibbs and Justin Fields is fucking terrifying. I'm all about that speed. I could throw it to him out of the backfield, right? Some short yardage that Justin could throw and just let Gibbs go to work. I really just love that fit. And that's kind of what made me lean him over any of the other guys. Devon, I almost picked Devon Achane. Truthfully, I think Achane might be a better pure runner, but Gibbs, I think
I would take Gibbs. I'd take Gibbs
I
like
take
9
Gibbs
times out
too.
of 10. Yeah.
I take Gibbs too, and I think the receiving really puts the nail in the coffin for me to take him there too.
Yeah, I just don't know how it wouldn't be Gibbs, to be honest with you. It's just it's nuts to me that yeah, it would have to be Gibbs, right? Like I don't see another scenario where it's not Gibbs. But Devon Achane was fun and explosive, but between getting hurt and what we saw, it was just not enough. Like I think he's deserving of a first round, but definitely not top 10. So alrighty. Let's you ready to jump into your Super Bowl predictions here?
I believe so. I was the last thing. I got a big Mike Mayock guy over here.
Mm-hmm.
This guy was GM for 3 years, right? And I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what your expectancy of 4th to 7th round picks are, but like it's not a ton usually, right? I
If
mean,
you get starters there, that's a win.
I look at he drafted 10 4th to 7th rounders in that 3 year stretch. And I
Mm-hmm.
would say that he got 5 guys that are starters. John Simpson started for us this year in a playoff game on our offensive line. Nate Hobbs is a solid corner. He's still starting. He drafted Max Crosby, who is one of the best
Yeah.
edge rushers in the game in the 4th rounder. Same 4th rounder, Foster Moreau. Pretty solid tight end, not bad.
Yeah,
And
he's
then
okay.
Hunter Renfro was a 5th round pick in that same draft from Max Crosby. He drafted Hunter Renfro and Max Crosby in the same class,
It's pretty good, actually.
which is insane because that's the exact same class they took Clinton Farrell, Josh Jacobs, and Jonathan Abrams in the 1st round. 2 of the 3 are not on the team anymore. So
Hmm.
I don't know,
There you
man.
go.
I understand why it'll never happen again, but I think I think it'd be fucking terrifying to see what that guy could do with the 1st round pick, truthfully.
Yeah, it would be fun. I would be entertained to kind of see what he could do.
Just to see, yeah, I'm just curious more than anything. So
Patriots should have brought him in. That's who they should have hired.
that would have been. Can you imagine? Oh my god, go from
That'd been
Bill
great.
Belichick to Mike Mayock.
It would never happen. It'd be too
No, but it would be some of the most entertaining football switch I've ever seen in my life.
They just blow it up and completely change pass here.
Yeah.
Well, cool. All right, let's jump into our Super Bowl predictions here. Who you got? Who you got winning the game?
I'm gonna take the 49ers in this one, and I'm hoping that you still have the other guys written down. Do you? You do. Okay. Just want to make sure that didn't. I'm gonna take the Niners here. I'm gonna dive in full.
Oh, yeah, go for
I'm
it. I mean,
thinking
this is the time to do it.
Sure you don't want to talk about Mike Mayock some more? No, I'm just kidding. So Stanford in this game, man. This is what it comes down to here. Now I'll give you the caveat at the end, and we'll kind of segue into yours because it is a point for the Chiefs at the end. The thing with Kansas City in this game, and when I look at San Fran across the way, and it's twofold. Both, as much as this point helps the 49ers, it also hurts them. I have not been super convinced with Kansas City, especially the offense down the stretch in their games so far. They've scored just 24 of their 70 points in the second half of the 3 playoff games they've played to this point. They haven't thrown a passing touchdown in the 4th, and I get that that's partially situational, right? Miami, they're running the clock out. Buffalo, they're trying not to make a mistake. Baltimore doing the same thing, up 7, no need to force anything. But they have 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter in general, and just 1 third-quarter touchdown between the 3 playoff games. So if it's close down the stretch, I'm curious to see how the offense truly performs for Kansas City. Because I have, like Miami, I was convinced, right? They were going to win this game. It was known coming into it. I really didn't have any question marks about Miami. Buffalo, I was not convinced. The last 9 minutes of football, Buffalo lost to me more than Kansas City kind of won that game. They didn't do anything to lose, which is, it's good enough to win a game, right? But Tyler Bass should have sent the game to OT. They really should have drove down and just scored a touchdown, won the game in that Buffalo game. Same thing with Baltimore. Just they didn't make any mistakes in the second half. That's all they needed to do because Baltimore had a loaded 6-shooter and just put all 6 bullets into their own fucking foot the entire game, especially in the second half. So, and when I look at this, we know that the Chiefs' run defense is the weak point, right? Chris Jones was playing on one leg for a majority of the Baltimore game, and they were getting pushed around, but Baltimore refused to run the ball, right? And what it comes down to for me is San Francisco has Kyle Shanahan. And they're not gonna. There's gonna be no scenario where I think they abandon the run. They're definitely not gonna come out and do what Baltimore did and just been like, "Oh, you want to make Lamar Jackson throw? You don't have to make. We're just gonna do it, right? We're just fuck. Who cares about running the ball? We're just gonna throw it." So to me, it comes down to Shanahan and them. Just they're gonna be persistent with the run, and I think they're gonna stick with it. I think the thing that scares me is that Purdy has been shaky in the last 2 games. And the defense hasn't been great, right? I mean, they've had some close calls. They haven't played super convincing football down the stretch either. But when needed, right? And you said it last week. I think you hit the nail on the head where Brock Purdy, I'm trying to remember the exact comparison. What was it? He's the opposite of Dak Prescott, where you're like, Dak's really good for 3 quarters and shits it when you need him. And Purdy is somehow like not shit for 3 quarters, but like not great. And then when you need him, he's Tom Brady, right? He shows up in those moments. So that's the thing that gets a little shaky is it's really hard to play from behind against Patrick Mahomes and just play that type of game. But I think that Shanahan's play calling is what separates them in this game because they're not going to abandon the run and they're not going to do what Baltimore did and just decide to throw the ball 35 times because the Chiefs stacked the box. Who cares? I went on a whole 15-minute rant about that with Jordan at work because I was just so frustrated about John Harbaugh's presser at the end of the year. But why are you taking Kansas City in this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really simple to me, right? When it comes to Kansas City, I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I'm going to start out with those two thoughts. And when I say that out loud, I trust Kansas City more in a close scoring game. Brock Purdy has been shaky. He kind of turned it on a little bit in the Detroit game. The only difference is if he plays slow and comes out and doesn't play well at the beginning against Kansas City, it's going to end poorly for him, right? Like Kansas City is not Detroit and they're not going to give that up. It's just not going to happen. So they've got to play a tip-top game from the beginning. And who knows? And maybe it does start out slow, right? Maybe Kansas City starts out slow and it's a low scoring game. I think that makes it a more interesting conversation at the very least, but I still think I'm losing my train of thought here. Yeah, I still think you have to go in and go, okay, Mahomes just isn't losing, and I'm not taking it out until I see him do it, right? Like Tom Brady beats him, but besides that, nobody else beats him. So, oh, I felt like you were going to jump in there. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I agree with you. Like that's the hard part for me is that like as much as I think that about the Niners and about what they're gonna do, but again, they haven't played super convincing football down the stretch. And how many times are we gonna bet against Patrick Mahomes and just be wrong? Like
Yeah.
it's what it got to with Brady and Belichick, and I think that's where we're at this point with
And
with
even
Mahomes.
even as we talk about Brock Purdy's struggles, right? Like Kyle Shanahan didn't look great in the Falcons Patriots Super Bowl, right? In the first time in the 49ers versus Chiefs, he looked better, right? That game was more on Jimmy Garoppolo than it was on Kyle Shanahan. Now, I'm not so sure if that's going to be the case this time. It'll be interesting to see like what we get out of it. Now, Steve Spagnuolo's seen the 49ers offense before, so I don't know if I'm feeling as confident. You know what I mean? He's going to have a better idea of what it's going to take to stop this team. And this is a talented Chiefs defense. So um, it's going to be tight, right? Like, I think this game, my final score prediction is going to be like 24-17. And that's really where I think it comes down to.
Yeah, and I think what kills them, what can kill uh San Fran is going to be turnovers. Like, if Brock Purdy makes mistakes, they will lose this game. If he turns the ball over more than once, I think they're done for. You absolutely cannot give Patrick Mahomes more chance with the football, especially if it's in the first half, because that's where they'll break your back. Is especially if you get the ball first, they come out, score, right? You say you make the mistake, they have a 14-point lead, or maybe it's just a 7-point lead even. Take it to halftime, they get the ball back, come out, score in the opening drive of the third. Now you're down 14, down 21. Your back is broken at that point. It's going to be so difficult to fight back into that game.
Yeah. No, it is. It's gonna be real interesting. That is for sure. I'm excited though. I think it's gonna be a good game because it's gonna be so close. I think there's gonna be less action than maybe people think. And watch, I'm gonna be dead wrong. The game's gonna be like 35-32 or something. But I think this game is about whose defense. Both the defenses are so good. It's at such a level where it's going to be about who can make the most out of the few opportunities they get, and that's really, for me, that's what it breaks down to in trusting Kansas City in this game. So,
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm curious to see how, because obviously it's going to be in a microscope the whole game, how this game gets officiated. They asked Nick Bosa this last week what he thought about the two tackles. They hold a lot, which is true. I mean, Jawan Taylor is the most penalized tackle in the league. Donovan Smith gets away with some calls himself on the other side. So, and there's some talented edge rushers, right? And we all saw the viral clip from Shanahan a couple weeks back where he's like, look at 85. They're holding my guy. He's going to try to go out, can't get him out, right? I mean, I think we could see a lot of that this year. Hey, look at 97 in red. Like, guys getting hugged every play on the outside. So, as much as nobody wants to talk about it, I guarantee you come Monday next week, that is going to be probably the main point of the talk.
Is how the refs, yeah, it is. And honestly, I'm okay long as they let both sides do it. I think it might be, I like it when the refs swallow their whistle, especially in a Super Bowl, because I'd rather them play than just have 25 penalties. It's just not going to be very fun that way.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
All right, let's give these people our Super Bowl MVP predictions here. I broke this down into two categories to make it more interesting, and we're doing non-QB, mind you. That's
okay, non-QBs, huh?
Non-QBs, yep. So if the 49ers win, non-QB, my guess is Debo. Christian McCaffrey feels like a really good bet. I just feel like Debo's going to have to make a play. He's going to have one of those ones where he catches a 7-yard slant and takes it 67 yards for a touchdown. So I'm hopeful that Debo is going to make something big here. And that's why I'm going with Debo if I have to go non-QB for the 49ers. He's going to have to be a big part of that game for that team to have success. And I think the same is true for McCaffrey.
And I'll counterpick you, honestly. I think McCaffrey's the given, right? I almost view McCaffrey as such an easy pick, just as easy of a pick as a QB would be for an MVP pick for the Niners or for either team. And I think Brandon Ayuk, right? I'm curious to see how Spags treats L'Jarius Sneed in this game, right? Is he going to go on an island with Sneed against Ayuk? Does he go vice versa and man him up on Debo the whole game? Does he just play the left side of the field and where you land, you land? That part is going to be such a huge factor in this game. Whoever, if they go with the island strat and say Sneed is manned up on one of these guys, whoever's across from Sneed, that's the guy that has to be the Super Bowl MVP, right? Jerry Sneed proved last week, even when he is not the best in coverage, right? And he got toasted for that 56-yard route by Zay Flowers. 3 plays later, biggest play of the game, forced fumble at the goal line. You have got to make the plays away from their best players. And obviously it's even better if you can make it on their best players. But if they're going to man up Sneed on on Debo the whole time. Firstly, I don't think it's a great matchup tackling wise. If they want to go with the slant route, I think that's where Debo can really break the game open. But man, we saw Brandon Ayuk have a ridiculous first half or second half against Detroit. So he is a huge factor in this game. Wherever L'Jarius Sneed's not, that's the receiver that needs to be the X factor in this game to me.
And the other thing I'll say too about McCaffrey is they might be game planning specifically to try to take McCaffrey out of the game as much as possible, because he is the ultimate safety net for Brock Purdy, right? So if you can slow him down and put the game in Brock Purdy's hand, I think it becomes a bigger question than if you let McCaffrey run all over you.
Yeah. Agreed.
So for the Chiefs, I have Pacheco. I think they have 3 really good picks here. I could see Rice having a really big game. He just feels like a guy who could have a good game. And then Kelsey's the obvious one, right? He's the McCaffrey of the other side. But I think Pacheco is going to have to play a big role. Mahomes is going to have to get the ball out quick. And when he does that, I think Pacheco is going to be the guy, and he's going to have to make big plays, not only in the ground, but catching the ball this game too. Alrighty, sorry about little technical difficulties there. We had a little internet issue there and disconnected. So Owen's going to give you his pick for the Chiefs Super Bowl MVP, and then we'll give you our bets, and we'll get you on your merry way.
Yeah, 100%. So I like the Pacheco pick a lot. I think Travis Kelce, obviously, again, same thing with CMC. As much as like you picked non-quarterbacks to try to make this more of a conversation, I think leaving CMC and Travis Kelce out also has to be tossed in. Just too easy of picks.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do a sneaky one here. I'm gonna go Nick Bolton of the Kansas City Chiefs. So, and I do think like we may see the first guy since Malcolm Smith to win a defensive MVP for if Kansas City wins it, because if they stretch this game out, win it by 2-3 touchdowns, it is because Brock Purdy has made mistakes. And when I look at who could possibly capitalize on those mistakes, a guy that could punch the ball out from CMC, right? Nick Bolton's a great run defender. He'll be in the middle of the field, might get a pick or two here and there. So I really do think if somebody has an outstanding game in coverage, maybe a tackle for loss or two, I do think you could see a defensive guy win this, possibly. I don't know if anybody's going to win it over Patty, truthfully, at the end of the day. But if we say the offense does stall out in the fourth, but thanks to Nick Bolton's 2 picks and a pick 6 and a tackle for loss,
could be.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's a low-scoring game, obviously it benefits the defense more at that point. So if Casey's offense goes cold, Brock Purdy makes mistakes, look for the guy that caused those mistakes on Kansas City's defensive side to be the guy to take home the Super Bowl MVP at that point.
Yeah, it could be. I'm excited. I'm excited to see. And even if a quarterback wins, we'll judge it based on who we would have picked if it was not the quarterback,
True. I mean, Patty's already got one that he shouldn't have. And the first time, God, I always mess his name up. It was the running back before COVID.
Jared McKinnon?
No, my Chiefs fans are screaming at me right now.
Clyde?
No, God, what year was that? It would have been 2019, I think. It was. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns and 2 picks in this game. It was the running back that started that game. Pulling up the box score. It was Damian Williams. That's who it was. Damian Williams ran buck wild in that game. And 17 carries, 104 yards, and a touchdown, and he was the one that sealed it towards the end. I always thought, and I have Chiefs fans that admit that. Like, Brendo's probably the biggest Chiefs fan, my best friend that I know, is like, fucking Damian Williams should have won fucking MVP that game. Patty did not play great. There's a lot of Chiefs fans that came out of that game like, thank God we won. That might have been the worst game of Patrick Mahomes' career. And they won by 11. Insanity.
It's nuts. Yeah. I mean, it's the Super Bowl, right? It takes some luck and help from others to get to that point for sure.
So 100%.
All right, jumping into bets here. If you or anyone you know is struggling with a gambling addiction, contact the Problem Gambling Helpline at 800-522-4700. Professionals are available 24 hours a day to take your call. Help is available at no cost to the problem gambler or their concerned others. Going back 2 weeks now here for these bets. I was 1-for-1 Chiefs versus Ravens over 44.5. That was obviously, it looked promising in the first quarter that was going to hit. Did not end up coming to fruition here. Lions plus 7.5 versus 49ers. Big win for me there. I actually parlayed Lions plus 7 and then 49ers money line together, and that was a great win by me.
Pretty solid bet there, yeah.
I knew that game was going to be close, and I just knew San Francisco was going to win it. Didn't look that way from the beginning. I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, that might be a mistake, but we'll see there. How'd you do last 2 weeks ago?
Also went 1-1. I had San Francisco minus 7.5 versus Detroit. Obviously, it looked like it was going to miss by a country mile. They ended up at least winning that game. Only they pulled it out. I think it was by 3 or 4 in that game.
Yeah, I think
so. Not a terrible loss there. And I had San Francisco and Detroit over 51. That one smacked. Obviously, you go down 24-7, you want to win a football game, you're probably going over 50 at that point, So that's how San Francisco shaped that one in for me. So
all right, my bets for the game is I've got the Chiefs plus 2.5 versus San Francisco. Like we always say, if they're giving you free points and it's that close, just take them. Right? It's under a field goal, but the 2.5 can matter. It's mattered in these playoffs for sure. And then I've got the game under 47.5. I've said it over and over again. 24-17 is where the score ends up in my mind. I just don't think it ends up being a high scoring game. I think it ends up being a lowing score one. So I like the under here for sure.
yeah, and obviously we're going to go head to head a couple times. I'm not taking the minus 2.5. I'm just going to go strictly San Francisco money line. Again, this game could go either way, right? If you feel 100% confident one of these two teams is going to win this game and you're not a fan of one of them, I'm shocked because each team has shown us why they deserve to be here and why they're going to win this game. But just as much, if not more, both teams have shown me why they don't deserve to be here. They shouldn't be here and why they're going to lose this game. So both teams have looked flawed down the stretch in the divisional round, in the championship game. So San Francisco has almost lost the last 2 games, and I would go on a limb and say Kansas City hasn't went out and won their last 2 games. So 2 very different things, though, right? I would rather not win a game than not lose a game. Because a lot of times when you don't win it, you still win, right? Mm-hmm. Versus the other way around. So I have over 47.5. I'm going to direct bet against you again. It didn't work out for me last week, but it did the last.
2 bets against me, basically.
Yeah, we're going pure head to head. I'm not sharing picks this week. So I think what scares me is that Kansas City's offense will stall out in the second half, but either this is going to be well short and it's going to be like 17-10, or it's going to blow 47.5 out of the water. And you're going to see like 65 total points put up, because
I'd love that. I think that would be better for the people if it's.
It'd be very entertaining football to watch. Yeah. But like, people are going in this, you're like, Kansas City might have a better defense. Are they more talented? No, I probably wouldn't say that. They 100% play better football in the playoffs. There is not a doubt in my fucking head that Kansas City has played better defensive football in the last 3 weeks. So if I'm thinking San Francisco is going to win this thing, then obviously I have faith in them to get up and down the field more than Kansas City does, which is going to be a tough one. But I do think that benefits the over. I think either I go 0-for-2 this week or I go 2-0. Like I think both of us. Yours with the points, may get a little weird, but I think one of us is going to go 2-0, one's going to go 0-2. I think the way we have it picked benefits our picks, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we got for this week's episode. Sorry again about the technical difficulty and the random jump there. Check us out next week where we'll recap the Super Bowl. We'll give you our grades for the head coaching hires of this season. Mm-hmm. And then, we'll see you next week.
100%.